Welcome.
What is up? What is up? Welcome to the All Circles Media Podcast. This is your hostess with the mostest, Ty. And I only say that because I look like a hostess cake. But I never judge you. Far too busy being delicious. But we are here today with, of course, our resident DJ, Robb. Hey, Robb.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And then we have our buddy Jan Almasy, Apex,
on,
Mr. Apex over here. And
Mr.
then we
Apex. That's kind of dope.
Yeah, I was working on that. I've been working on that. I've been trying to get like cool nicknames for everybody. So I'm gonna workshop some and see how it goes. You're gonna hear me say a lot of weird stuff over the next week. just because I'm just know I'm trying shit out. But anyways, this is actually my good buddy Jared. I've actually been friends with this man for about I would say like non-consecutively, like 5 or 6 years. You think?
Yeah, about 5 years.
Yeah, about 5 years. This guy, I don't know, I guess you'd call him a jack of all trades, but what I wanted to have him here on the pod today to talk about, since it is Spooktober.
Spooktober.
Oh yeah, Spooktober. I figured we go with a little bit of theme. I want to talk about maybe some mental health things and, maybe some more other things about how abnormal / paranormal Ohio is. And I think one of the best guys I could probably get to do that is somebody who I've experienced some paranormal shit with. This is my buddy Jared. He's a shaman, and I'll let him introduce yourself. Tell the people what it is that you get into.
Hey, what's up? So, Ty mentioned that I'm a shaman. So essentially, it's just working. It's like a spiritual form of psychology and counseling. So you sort of just work with people to help shift their mentality behind the way they view themselves in relation to like a problem they're dealing with or some type of affliction they have, and allow them to sort of, I'd say it's like doing a placebo. You just sort of convince them like, hey, change your mindset behind why you view this problem as a problem, and it'll help you move through that. But we also sort of operate as like, well, if this is something I can't handle, like a major medical problem, yeah, I can help you with recommendations for like doctors or stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a fun journey. I'm still early on in it. Like I've only done it for a couple years, but yeah, I'm hoping I can take that somewhere. I eventually want to become a actual counselor.
Okay.
I feel like having sort of a well-rounded like spiritual as well as clinical perspective on things can help me reach more people in the process of doing that.
I totally agree. Could you scooch a little bit closer to the mic?
Oh, yeah.
But also, if I could ask you real quick, what made you want to get into it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Was it like maybe some ancestry stuff, or just you kind of, like, what made you want to take this path?
At first, it was because some of my ancestors are actually Native American. So I just figured, okay, nobody else in my family like really embraces that or appreciates that. So like, why not like get involved in that culture? And then I ended up discovering shamanism while I was also in the middle of researching different spiritualities like Buddhism, Taoism. And I'm like, you know what? This sort of fits in line with working with mental health care. So I'm like, you know what? My family history has Native American blood in it. I'm also invested in psychology. So why not just combine the two and also make that a part of like a representation of that culture?
I think that's a really unique and awesome way to look at it. I feel like if a lot more people took that approach to the more esoteric natures of like the cultures that they come from, then maybe it could actually lead to, a bit of a better understanding and perhaps just a unique and better way of looking at mental health and how it was looked at in the past, and how maybe we can like use, maybe not take it that as serious as others, but like maybe use at least the aspects of what made those people, happy, or even consider those practices back in the day, because they have to have some validity if for some reason they worked before standard medical practice. And the combination that you're doing of both, I think, is just a good way to cover all your bases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
With that being said, I mean, like, so it's October and this is Ohio, so I will say that like Ohio's been getting a lot of bad rap lately. Netflix has been making us look real crazy. Like it's like I've lived here my whole life, and it's just like, all right, man, like yeah, some stuff goes on, but like it's a bit of an exaggeration. Like we ain't Florida. Like they're a close relative. We're like a fucking abused stepchild of Florida. Like
yeah, we just got landlocked and
exactly
nobody has any vitamin D.
Exactly. We moved away from the hurricanes. That's what happened. Like that's what it's. But what
We just get a little rain
just a little bit. We get to like
occasionally.
But we get like abnormal ass weather. I would say that there is a saying actually that you can find it on Facebook probably. Like Ohio's one place where you could be shoveling snow in the morning and then catch a sunburn by the afternoon. Like
100%.
It's pretty crazy. So if you come out here, you got to be made of some tough stuff because the weather is really sporadic. As a matter of fact, I think it's the only place I've ever seen it rain in one particular spot. Like I'll be standing right here where it's dry, and I'm looking at an area where it's raining directly in front of me. Like you know what I'm saying, as if like the clouds cut it off, like right there. I was like, how does that work? Like atmospherically, how the fuck is that possible? But I'm looking at it, or like you'll be driving away from it. You feel me? You're just driving, and there's a storm behind you. Like I was like, oh, okay, cool.
You try to like outrun it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Outrun.
There's
nature.
actually studies like when it comes to I was really into spec ops when I was in the military, right? So like when I was going through my captain's, or I was going to try to pursue my captain's commission. My captain's commission was going to be in something called SOST, S-O-S-T, which is like the Special Operations Surgical Teams. So if you picture like a Ranger or a SEAL or any of those individuals get hurt in the field, these are the nurses that fly in to get them out, right? So I was like, I get to save the most badass people on the freaking planet. Bet.
That's pretty
like,
nice.
I'm high. Like, so I was on that path, and in the process of doing that, I did a bunch of research. Like, how do you survive the hazing that is the 10 weeks where they try to get you to quit for 10 straight weeks?
Yeah.
Before they even let you start to take the academic courses to see if you've got the brains to get in. And one of the things that I read consistently was that people from Ohio to the East Coast, right? So Ohio is the first state, and then everything east of that, headed towards the coast, have a higher percentage passing rate of special operations entry trainings because of our ability to, like, we know what it's like to be outside in 100-degree weather with 80% humidity. We also know how to deal with -6 degree with a wind chill that feels like 30 below.
That's fact.
Right? And
know
other
the
people
extremes.
they don't have those extremes. You know, if you're born and raised in Cali, you know, it's always been 70.
It's very sporadic.
Like 90
my favorite
degrees,
thing.
and they throw you in that cold ass water. You're like, oh, that's something I've never felt before.
That's like Erie. That's like Erie for us, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like any lake during the summer.
But that's the thing though, is that it's like, so we also get like a bit of a bad rap for like the whole I guess like the supernatural stuff, or that people claim on that goes on around here. I think there's a pretty famous, like a couple of famous ghost stories that come from here and stuff. Like I don't know if the Amityville house is from here. I don't think it is, but I think it's
Maine? There's like Maine.
Maine,
it's like Maine or something like that. I think it's
There
something
is
similar.
the Shawshank.
It's something similar. There's something
Yeah,
here.
we have the
It's like-
Mansfield Reformatory.
that place
Molly
is
Stark.
spooky.
That's
There's
where
a lot
Sean Shag
of
was filmed and stuff.
the largest Indian burial grounds east of the Mississippi
Yeah,
here
the Cedar
in
Point.
the state of Ohio. Like,
Canal Fulton, they say, where I live,
Mhm.
they say that's haunted.
They say that's
The
haunted.
whole city. The whole town.
Let
is
me ask you this:
haunted.
what's an old wives' tale or like a ghost story that you
Well-
specifically heard while you've lived here
hold on.
about?
Before we dive into that, can we I want to level set with everybody because I think it's interesting that we're throwing this thing around now. What is our definition of haunted, right?
Definition
is
of
it
haunted.
is it just the existence of a spirit in a particular area, or is it like somebody having a paranormal encounter that scares them, or like
For me personally, I break it down into two categories, and it has to do this way because of this. If a house is haunted, that means that there is a poltergeist or a number of poltergeists in the house, right?
Okay.
And the difference for me personally, just not for everybody, but the difference for me between a spirit and a poltergeist is a spirit is just like, you know what I'm saying, it's just there. It can affect the physical world maybe, but it doesn't have any, malevolent nature towards you. Like it's just there.
It's not like actively messing
It's not
with you,
actively
yeah.
messing with you. It's occupying that space because of some reason or another. You know what I'm saying? Like an attachment of some kind. Now a haunting is some shit is going on that's trying to keep you out. Like a haunting is like when you haunt
Or they're
something,
trying to
you're
keep
trying
you
to
in.
they're trying to torture something. Like you know what I'm saying? Like or some shit like that.
trying to trap
So like I need some extra normal ghosty shit, like shit flying off walls, doors randomly
right.
locking.
See, and this is why I wanted to
something
ask the
pushing me
question,
down the
because
stairs.
there's a bunch of different things.
Because if
in
I
there.
see a ghost, that's it. I saw it. You know what I'm saying? But if something pushed me down the stairs after I saw it, I'm like,
different
all right, that's
ballgame.
haunted. I'm out.
You're like, hey,
Like that's haunted.
like we didn't have a problem, now we have a problem.
He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
like shit. Oh
What
shit, the
about-
door's locked.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, I try to have a healthy balance on whether or not I determine a place is haunted. So
Yeah.
like, I sort of look at it as, is it something where it's psychosomatic? Is there something going on in the house where this person could just be seeing shit? I had to go with him on the whole poltergeist thing. I was actually doing some research on that a few months ago, and they think that they think that a poltergeist is more of a psychosomatic concept. Like, it usually happens to people that are unstable, and in a lot of homes where like there's a lot of teenagers. And there's a working theory that something about the way like our brain can project energy, it can just create like paranormal activity because we're projecting.
Get a little
most of it
closer.
on the background.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of experiences where I've questioned if it's real, but I haven't really found anything that's outright, oh, I could have just been seeing things.
Right.
So if there's something that exists within a place that you've ruled everything else out, then yeah, I can consider that haunted.
Right.
Because every time I've been in a situation where someone was telling me about their house or their experiences, I was always able to sort of just whittle it down to, well, were you on anything at the time? Were you drunk? Was it late at night? Is it in a dark area?
Are you anxious in other areas of your life right now?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think it's probably the best way to look at it, especially when it comes to just like, because you don't want to ever like invalidate the way someone feels. Like if you saw something, you saw something. Like you don't have to prove that to me whatsoever. However, if I go there and your intention is to prove to me that, hey, this is what I've been experiencing and I need validation, I'm going to attack it from a, well, okay, so just like you did, like I'm not under the substance of anything. Nothing has happened to me just yet. So I'm still not going to call you a liar because it still could have happened type shit.
Yeah.
But it's just like, if I feel like, I don't even want to say energy because like that's a bit of a weird way to go about it. But it's just like, if I feel like a vibe or something, or like they're trying to convey the message to me that, hey, I'm really stressed out about something right now. That's why I need you here. I'm still willing to tolerate it until, like I said, until I see some shit. And I personally, like you said, I don't think I've ever actually had anything thrown at me. I've had stuff fall off of shelves, like in the middle of conversations and stuff like that. But that's also like, that could be shoddy fucking carpentry work, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm looking behind me. I'm like, no,
you know what I'm saying?
don't do
Now,
anything.
the cold chill. I will say though, there's been a few times, you know what I'm saying, especially like whenever we be in our urban exploration days, it's like where it's like the temperature will drop randomly. Like it was hot as fuck for no reason, and all of a sudden, like because we started talking about something, I see my breath all of a sudden, and we both can see it.
Like,
That
what?
shit's like, all right, you know what? Maybe we might leave. We should probably leave. You know what I'm saying? Or we're trying to pick something up on the end of like a bridge where a bunch of people got killed or something, and then like we hear a sound, you know what I'm saying, on the fucking EKG device. And it's like, all right, cool, let's just leave. You know what I mean? Like, but that's as far as I'm willing to go with it, because each of those times I'm looking to find something. But like, if you're
Right.
chasing it, like, do you also happen to trick your brain into fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever had a situation like that where it's like, damn, I really want to see this, and I've been told. So it's like your brain just kind of satisfied the urge.
DJ Adam Robb.
Is that trademark? Can we use it?
I've used it on podcasts, and that it doesn't get claimed. So
All right,
that's
man.
good.
But what about you,
That's
Jan? What's your definition of haunted?
My definition of haunted. In a world. See, that one, I feel like that one is kind of tough for me. Like, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences, right? And I feel like I've connected with a bunch of different things. And at the end of the day, though, for me, everything boils down to I don't really know if there's such a thing as ghosts, right? My fundamental layout of spiritual realm is just angels, demons, right? Like there's only two sides for me.
Okay.
Because of my Christian background. And so I used to kind of like try to incorporate a bunch of other things into that, but then I was like, okay, I'm making everything a lot more muddy than I thought, and I caught myself like seeing things or engaging with things that either weren't there or maybe something disguised as something else manifesting in a different way.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, okay, well, what if I just lean into like angels, demons, and the research that goes into that? And I ended up finding out that like things like land spirits, I didn't know that's in like the definition of what an angel does, right? And I'm like, oh, so I've been thinking like spirits, but angel, right?
Yeah.
Laid that over. And so at the end of the day, like haunted for me is do I walk into a room or do I walk into an area where something traumatic happened? Am I capable of like tapping into whatever that pain was that was there? And if I can, and I start to feel I'll walk into rooms. I remember when I went to Mansfield Reformatory, because I was stationed in Mansfield for 7 years, and we used to go there like every year for Halloween. There was a couple of times where I went and I didn't feel anything, but there was one time I went where we went on a different part of the tour and we entered a part of the building that they had just finished renovating or something, and it was like I got nauseous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dude, my
And like
stepdad's
you
got
walk
some
into
creepy stuff in
there,
there.
yeah, I walked into that room and I hadn't felt that presence prior, but I walk into there and I immediately feel 400 pounds. That's when I know like there's something here.
See, it's funny you brought up the reformatory actually, because me and my ex-girlfriend, when I have a buddy who lives in Mansfield, we went there last year. We went there to do the regular tour and stuff. You know, they give you those tickets. So it was like, hey, you can come back during the day and tour it whenever we're not doing the haunted house stuff. I was like, yo, that actually would be fucking cool. Like, I think like that's the part I wanted to see, because it was just like, yeah, you got all the dressed up and all the stuff's going on and stuff, but I want to see the actual what the shit looked like how they were living. Because when I was going through it at night, like I said, like sometimes your brain just satisfies that whole urge to want to see some stuff. So like,
Well, it's very tailored. It's an experience, right?
Exactly.
Like
So like, I'm
You
going
get
through
hyped up
it,
for it.
and like I'm in line and stuff, and like, you know, it's just, for me, it's just kind of fun to just look into the cells and stuff, and like just picture what they may have been doing, what they look like, because them shits are really tiny. It's just like, damn, like people actually lived like animals in this bitch. So I'm looking at it, and it's just like, okay, cool. I see that in my mind's eye. I know it's not actually fucking there. Like, I'm just like, all right, cool. I can see what they might have been doing or some shit like that. But then I do the day tour, right? And like you said, we get to a part of the building that's not used for the fucking haunted house for some reason. I'm just like, all right, cool. Why do I feel so fucking sad now? Like, now do I feel like burdened, I guess you could say. It's just like that. Because I wouldn't say necessarily like it was a weight, but it was just like a really feeling of like wanting to leave. It was just like, you ever be like a situation, you be at a party sometimes, right? The vibe just ain't right. It's like, damn, I really want to get the fuck up out of here. It was like that times a million. It was just like, something doesn't want me here and I don't want to be here. So it's like, I just need to, like, I think I cut the tour off after that too. I was just like, you know, I kind of just want to leave the whole area at this point type shit.
Is that something that came out of like nowhere? Like you weren't feeling that way before?
No, exactly, because it's like I worked at a haunted house for several years in an actual haunted factory, like, you know what I'm saying, at the old Hercules factory and stuff, and stuff. So it's like
there's a lot of crazy shit about that.
So you know what I'm saying. So like I've been in areas where shit like that, and I'll tell you what, like it's weird because you'll be perfectly fine, and like, you know, I've been saying, when it's your job to stand in the dark place with paint on your face and jump out and just go, rah, you feel me? You kind your brain starts fucking
like,
racing. You know what I'm saying? Your brain starts racing. You're standing there like, huh? Like, what is this place actually fucking haunted? And then you start talking to yourself, and then all of a sudden, and then it's just like, did I actually talk to that fucking employee that was standing right there? I was like, have I been in this room the whole time by myself? Who's to say?
Like, I was talking
Type
to this
shit.
guy Jeff, and they're like, "There's no Jeff."
It's
here."
like, Jeff
And you're
doesn't
like,
work here, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, you feel it whenever the vibe changes. You feel it whenever you're in the room and it's just some shit like, oh shit. Like I said, like, just gets cold all of a sudden, or like there's a bone chill up my spine. Like, why am I so fucking afraid? Why is my fight or flight triggered right now when absolutely nothing's happening? When I feel that, which is very, very palpable, I just leave. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like my brain can't rationalize what's going on, so I'm just like, all right, I'm out. You know what I'm saying?
Eject.
I can actually second on that. I have had instances where I feel like I've actually made eye contact with something before. Like, I don't know, like I've seen like shadows and shit, but it's weird because normally if you see a shadow moving somewhere, it's like, oh, that's someone like lights and shit. Yeah. But like 2 of the instances where I've had that happen, it's like every single synapse in my brain is like, what the hell is that? And then it goes away. Yeah. So yeah, I can kind of lean into that because I feel like that's the same thing, but on a more minor level, because you can tell something's there.
Oh, yeah, I think it's our ingrown survival instinct, because like you ever notice, like, just before you get hit in the back of the fucking head, you get that little tingle. It's like, all right, shit, like,
It's
I'm
like
ready
Spidey sense.
Exactly. It's like that, but like it's like a red flash. It's like, holy shit. It's like the feeling I get from like just being pulled over by a cop, even if I've done nothing wrong, but times a million, like times a freaking million. It's just like, all right, I know things are gonna be cool because nothing's happening, but holy shit, something might happen. I need to leave. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it raises my like adrenaline, I guess you could say. Like, adrenaline would be the thing. Because I'm trying to respond to something that's not there. That's why I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Because I can't see it. You know what I'm saying? If I don't see what's going on, I can't, like, in my brain, I'm trying to be a logical thinker. So it's just like my only option is to leave. Yeah. You know what I mean?
The craziest thing I've ever experienced was living out in LA on Skid Row, like working in like that environment. Damn. Like, you would see the craziest stuff, dude. Like, I mean, it was stuff that was like I've never felt like, because we were out there, you know, I was out there working, trying to like help people get out of like these hard addictions. And like I'd be walking down the street and I'd get like a little old lady who would just look up at me and like, she would like be like cursing Jesus' name and stuff like that. And you're like, whoa, like, what is this? Is like some biblical stuff. Like, I was like, I feel like you're walking through hell. Like, you're literally walking through hell right now. Yeah. And like, just that, like, you know, that area, it's like such a, like, when you walk on, like, it's a dark place. Like there's it has its own like community in and of itself, and there's spots of light in that place. But when you're walking through like the sketchiest part of Skid Row, it's like you feel it. And a lot of the time I was working there, I had to like kind of get over that feeling and be like, all right, like if something goes down, like I got to be ready to either respond or just like pray that I'm not gonna die.
Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Right. That's the whole shadow of death concept. I think is. Like
I think so.
When you're in an area, so a shadow, right, meaning something that was a reflection of the actual event itself or the actual entity itself. You encounter a shadow of death when you go to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Yes. You encounter the shadow of death when you're at a place like Skid Row. The shadow of death at Molly Stark, or that room specifically at Mansfield Reformatory. When I mean, these are the words that I use, right? So when an egregious sin against another person is done consistently in an area, it leaves a mark. It leaves a permanent. It's like a rip in the void, almost. Like it's a permanent mark, where darkness can just linger.
Yeah. Nelson's Ledges is kind of like that too. Sad to say, but like Nelson's Ledges, just because of all the random stuff that's happened there that hasn't ever been documented to people, was just like,
I almost died once going like
Same.
Hiking there.
Me too.
I was like, I'm gonna jump over this.
Are you
this
really
little
from
ravine.
Northeast Ohio if you haven't almost died at Ledges?
There are these like little gaps, and in your mind you're like I can make that gap. And then there's sometimes you're like midway in the gap and you're like, I better make this gap or I'm not going to be here anymore.
For me personally, it was like, damn, I really like these people. Oh, what's that? Oh, crap. Is that ketamine? Damn. Passed out. Woke up, 4 hits of acid. Time to go to the beach. Awesome. It's a rite of passage sometimes, for real, whenever you go through stuff like that. Well, it is the things. Ohio has a lot of small towns, too. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into that. There's a lot of small towns that are maybe like, population 5 to 100 people. Let's say that. Yeah. It's like literally
population. My cousin looks hot today. Like,
basically, you know what I'm saying? They're called villages. We do call them villages. Like they're villages that are on the outskirts of towns. So it's just like in these places, right? I be hearing some wild stories about some shit that go on out there. We got a lot of Amish folk out here as well. So like it's some crazy some crazy Mennonite stuff that goes on out here, and it's just like it's cool because it's like they're so nice and they're very good to like trade with and stuff. They make a lot of cool products and stuff, but then you run into like you hear it's like the craziest stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like whether it comes out of like I'm from a place called New Philadelphia out here in Ohio, and they call it New Filthy now.
New Filthy.
But, New Methadelphia. It's
I've heard that one.
I went to high school. I was the only black kid in the entire town for like years.
That does not surprise me.
I went to
slightest.
I went to high school there. So like compared to everyone else, like it was weird because growing up there, people just treated me like I had superpowers. I was the only one around that didn't burn in the sun. I had natural camouflage at night. It was very hard. I was very hard to find. It's like it was. So it was. Oh my god. So it was a pretty unique experience growing up there. But everyone fucked with me in one way, shape, or form. Whether it was positive or negative, I got all the attention regardless. So I got to hear everything about everyone,
whether the time.
Whether they wanted to be my friend or not. And that's just kind of small town syndrome. It was a place where you could realistically probably leave your doors unlocked until you go up to now in the 2020s, and it's just like I finally have an answer to the question of those hot chicks those hot country girls I wanted to date in high school and they wouldn't do it. I finally get an answer to the question, what did that dude have that I didn't? Turns out it was meth. But
it is.
You dodge a bullet on that one, but then you also get to grow up with some of the craziest like stories of just like, oh, there was a story floating around. It was just like, oh, like the cemetery out there. Like if you go there at night at a certain time, this shit's haunted. This is before like text messages and like chain letters and stuff like that. People were just making shit up to see if you could like go there and just see some cool stuff. But then the fair would come around, right? And we get a lot of people from all over. And then you get like this rumor going around that people are coming up missing at the fair or some shit like that. And it's just like it creates a negative atmosphere. But like that shit, like that was exciting to us back in the day. Now I'm sitting here thinking about it like I don't even want to go back there. It's just like, man, if I had my kid come home and tell me like, "Hey, heard this rumor about yada yada." I was like, "Guess we're moving." Like, fuck you and your funnel cake. That's what I heard.
I feel like that's the Stark County Fair now too.
It is. It's getting there. It's getting there.
That needs to be a bit when you're stand up. Fuck that funnel
Fuck
cake.
you and your funnel cake. That'll be the name of the joke.
That'll be the whole set. You're about to wait till the end.
I'm gonna like
understand
loop
what
it
that
back
means.
into that.
Yeah, loop it in there.
The whole end of the joke would just be how rallies for funnel fries suck. What is your definition of haunted?
Of haunted, man, I don't know, like, cause I go back and forth with like kind of the same thing you were talking about, cause like I believe in the Bible and like I've seen like I think Skid Row like really opened my eyes to like there's like really dark shit that happens.
Demonic possessions,
like,
real.
yeah, and like they're like
stuff like that.
and there are things that people can open themselves up to, and
100%.
I feel like when people like they I feel like there's a lot of root causes to like homelessness, and it's super deep. Like there's so much nuance to it. Like whether like I think it's like something like 40 over 40% of homeless people have some type of mental illness, and it's a lot of them get on there because they get hooked to these drugs that their doctor prescribes to them, and then that becomes either too expensive or it's not doing the right, it's not doing the trick. And so they go to harder stuff that kind of does similar things, but it's a lot easily available. But then you spiral down that thing, and you end up in these dark places dealing with people that are doing dark shit. And so I don't know, like I learned that there's like you gotta be wary of what you're like letting in, and also like wary of like what you're putting out too, like because I do believe that there's stuff that like we can all kind of like let into your lives that you're like, that's not good.
Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, that's what the Spidey. Those are where the Spidey senses come in. When you go to those areas, it's like
for sure.
people that did this to this location let something in that took them to a place that like allowed this to happen.
Oh, for sure.
Type of thing.
For sure. Have you ever personally like been, I wouldn't say like haunted or whatever, but have you ever personally experienced what's like the most supernatural experience you've had? Like just
outside of like
other than
outside of
the whole demon lady.
Other than Skid Row, yeah. Because that was probably the most I've ever experienced it was like out in LA, because like we were out there like trying to do good, and those things pop up and try to scare you into not helping. And but here, like I've kind of experienced it a little bit with like growing up. Like I've always kind of been aware of like weird stuff. Like there was one time me and my brothers, we were up in the attic at our house, and I had my own room, and then my brother and my stepbrother shared a room like adjacent, like right across this little
like
hallway.
attic upstairs.
Yeah, and we would watch TV, and then we'd get yelled at and been told to go to bed. And so my stepbrother was watching TV, and we were like, dude, we got to go to bed. And like our stepdad had like yelled at us like 3 times already. And we were like, we were yelling. Like I was yelling at him. My brother was yelling at our stepbrother. And then all of a sudden I like screamed. I was like, turn that off. And immediately the TV turned off. And I was like, thank you. And he's like, I didn't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? And I got up out of bed, and the remote was like on the TV. And I was like, and like they slept in my room that night because we were so freaked out. We were like, what the heck just happened? Like that was some scary stuff. Like, I don't know, stuff like that where I was like, am I magic? Like what? Where's my
Meanwhile, in the basement with power
letter?
breaker.
Yeah,
Dad just flipped the switch.
But yeah, dude, it was crazy though. Like I don't know. Like I've experienced like spooky stuff. Like me and my brother used to go out in the woods at night, and we would just scare ourselves basically. Like we would go out there just to scare yourself.
I feel like that's kind of what everyone does whenever like when you get the idea to go urban exploring and shit. It's just like, hey, let's go possibly get arrested. Like basically, you know what I'm saying? Like
possibly get arrested or stabbed.
Like, or that. You know
or
what I'm saying? Like who knows? If we break into this abandoned building, who knows what the fuck we'll find? It could be a ghost, could be a homeless dude, could be like, it could be awesome.
Yep. could be like a weird cult doing something, some like.
See, that's what I hope
It's
for
so
every
crazy.
time I do it. That's kind of what I hope for, just so I can be like, oh damn, I done finally found some shit. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just like, even if I know no one's gonna fucking believe me, bro, it's one of those situations to where when you go like urban
dude,
exploring,
I saw a bunch of druids.
you go urban exploring, right? I don't know if you guys saw that movie, As Above, So Below, but it was just like
Yeah.
it was some dudes who went into the French catacombs and stuff. I'm just like, yo,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I've seen part of that. It's like a French movie, right?
no, well, it was made in America, but it's based in France, like it's shot in France. You know,
I
what I'm saying?
thought I thought it was one of those ones you have to like watch with subtitles.
No, it came out in America. It was really good. It was a really good movie. It was one of those found footage videos.
Oh, like, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Kind of like Chronicle or whatever. Also a great film. But it's one of those things where when you go, especially around here in Ohio and stuff, it's just like we do have it is illegal to do so. So like when you go to like Tamale Star, like nowadays you could barely get in that bitch. Like yeah, there's no like bars on the windows or anything like that, but like security and stuff, because it's just like when you do these things, it's damn near guaranteed you're not really gonna find anything most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, for real.
Yeah.
So it's just like we're just going for the experience, and I feel like that's whenever the actual supernatural shit happens, whenever you don't expect it. Because when you start chasing it and stuff, that's why I don't watch those ghost hunting TV shows or like the those TV shows about celebrities who have had paranormal experiences.
Like
and
Post Malone.
Yeah, and then like that's why I don't watch Axon Bronson talk about like how his fucking haunted bathhouse incident one time or something. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things to where even if that shit did happen or if it is real, it doesn't appeal to me. But when I'm in the mind space of like just trying to consider it or whatever, I have to be at least, I want to say like primed to have a good enough suspension of disbelief before I even attempt it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like I'm always going to try it, and I don't want to be that guy because I don't like to invalidate. But it's just like, all right, well, logically, this is probably what actually happened, and the way you're explaining it to me sounds like you just missed this.
Producers and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, you never know.
Exactly.
what
And
to
it's just
believe.
like, they're just screaming at a fucking microphone, and it's just like on a fucking green screen camera or whatever. So
Like,
it's,
I just saw this little girl run by, and then they're like, "Play the tape back," and it's like, "I'm a little girl," and you're like, "Nah, dude, come on."
it's like, dude, hold up a second.
How real
I
is
just
that?
pissed my pants. Braid that back real quick.
There's actually like dogma. So dogma is like traditional teaching, right? For
Isn't there a movie
exorcism.
by Kevin Smith?
I have no idea.
That's a good movie. Dogma was a great movie. Actually. But exorcism, right?
Yeah, and one of the dogmas about apparitions, and there's a skill set that an exorcist has to develop. And the only reason I know this because my uncle is one, or was
snap.
one. He was one for the
Can
Vatican.
we get him on the podcast?
For a period? He will not. Hell no.
Yeah.
No, he gets uncomfortable talking about it as it is. He would hate the
Understandable.
fact that I'm talking about it.
Understandable.
But he, so I mean, he's a changed man, right? He served a tour. I mean, that's what the Vatican calls it. You serve a tour as an exorcist, right?
Oh,
Like,
what? That's like what is he like the general, like the Bible general, like what do they call it, a tour for? Is it just
a tour? Oh, because it's so taxing on you that
okay.
they only allow priests to do it for a maximum of 2 to 3 years,
Okay.
and then you go back to being a parish priest, right?
Yeah.
Because it's too much of a weight. Like you're constantly engaging with the diabolic on a daily basis. So his whole thing, like one of the skill sets for discernment, is like knowing when an apparition or somebody is BSing you, because he said the majority of possession cases, he would look at like 600 something a year. Like all of the exorcists combined
Holy
would look at
shit.
600 a year, and only like 4 of them would be legit possession. The rest would be demonic influence or something like a psychiatric disorder.
That makes
And
sense.
so they have to figure out, because like you don't want to treat somebody that's schizophrenic like they're possessed
Yeah.
and they're just have a neurochemical imbalance.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of know both sides. Same thing with like the shamanism and balancing clinical psychology, right? Like you have to help people figure out, like, is this really what you think it is, or do you just have really shitty habits?
Yeah.
And he said that like when somebody would come up with an apparition or something that was so detailed and they had every aspect lined out, he was like, bullshit every single time. He was like, that is like one of the number one signs that whatever that feeling that person was experiencing was psychological or something they've been ruminating on for a long period, because he was like, there's very rarely times that spirits manifest themselves for longer than a certain period of time, and you really just get a flash, like the shadow thing. Like you get to look and it's gone. And so people will be like, I think I saw this, I kind of felt this, and then like I did this, or they'll have periods of lapsed memory or something like that where they're like, I was here and then I was there and I don't remember that piece, but it was never anything that it's like, oh my God, like here's all of these things that happened.
Right, like I got possessed and then like he used my body for things while I was
Right.
asleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, see, I feel like I agree with the fact that that's a good way to look at that for real. Because I assumed when you said 600, I'm like, dude, there's no way that they don't do any more than like 3 or 4 real ones a year. You know what I'm saying? And with that in mind, I feel the exact same way. Like for someone to call upon like anyone to be an exorcist, you know what I'm saying? It would have to take a lot of spiritual wherewithal and stuff like that. So I'm imagining for these kinds of individuals who spend this is kind of their life's work or whatever. They don't do this for like monetary value or whatever.
No. Yeah.
For them, you actually probably damn near have to be crawling on the ceiling for them to believe it. Like they're not going to probably come to your house and actually just
Right,
throw.
it's like me as an ICU nurse, right? Like
Right.
if you start complaining about a paper cut, and I'll be like,
Right. Exactly.
"Why are you in my ER?"
Exactly. Don't get me wrong. Like as a former EMT myself, like I've pulled things out of
Yep.
people. Like you know what I'm saying. So it's like I've had random things where like people show up like, oh, I'm pretty sure this is wrong or this is what's happening, and I'm sitting there taking their levels and stuff like that. It's like you were perfectly fine. You're literally just screaming at me for no reason.
Right,
I've taken
right.
everything. You're good. You don't need any extra medicine. You don't need any extra whatever. Like I don't care. You can tell me like what are you taking? Like what are you on? And like they'll be like I'm catching somebody in the middle of an overdose and they're afraid to tell me that they're on drugs and I'm just like, yo, you're literally dying. I'm gonna need you to level with me. Like it's,
Right.
it doesn't. You're not going to jail.
I got Narcan in my pocket, but I can't use it.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna give it to you unless you know what I'm saying. So it's like it's the same thing with these guys. It has to be. So it's like you could be tied down to the bed and someone with mental illness could just be throwing themselves around like, oh, I'm possessed and shit. But until like some actual shit starts happening, I guarantee you they're not even going to take it serious.
Well, and yeah, he was like, and every time he's encountered something like that, he was like, it's not, well, and this is starting to get out of the conversations that I've had with him, right? So now he sparked an interesting conversation with myself. I started doing additional research. So this part is not directly from his mouth. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But the majority of things that you go into is not like people flailing around or floating or like moving, other stuff like that. It's very like kind of what he talked about. It's like a demon uses something as a tool to get you to open a doorway to a lifestyle that you would not have opened that doorway to previously, and then slowly drags your soul down that life journey. And then you end up in this place where you're like, what the fuck happened?
Do you think that happens to a lot of people who come back from the military? Because like that's like that doesn't make it for me. It doesn't make sense that there's a lot of homeless veterans at all for real. But like, do you think that that's something that could attribute to the reason why a lot of them come back and end up like that?
Yeah, I think that well, that's a fine balance between PTSD and like what having PTSD and seeing true malevolence at its worst. Like war is one of the horsemen. You know what I mean? It's one of the things that can take down mankind.
Yep.
Same level as famine and pandemic and things of that nature, right? It's something that when you see it for what it actually is, it never leaves.
You're forever
right?
changed,
And yeah, you're forever changed. And if you're 18 and you experience that, you want to talk about having doors open to things that you never thought you would have to process.
Yeah. Exactly what I was
Those doors never close.
That's exactly what I was kind of driving at. It's just like
it takes a lot of work. I won't say they never close. It takes a lot of work to either deal with the fact that they exist and they're open, or it takes a lot of work inside of therapy sessions, inside of friend groups, inside of support groups to close them and put them to rest. But it's only then that like I feel like somebody can really access their true potential, because it suppresses people heavy.
I can only imagine, because if PTSD is a bitch regardless, you know what I'm saying? But I can only imagine that particular kind of PTSD can't help but most likely have this the unfortunate side effect of having those doors be open, as well as somebody who probably has been through an abusive relationship, like a super abusive relationship. You know what I'm saying? I've met people who have been so gone through the ringer by just one individual that now they're completely fucked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's like mentally or even sometimes physically, because then sometimes their mental health gets affected so much that they stop caring about not only themselves, but then they start using other maybe more like esoteric shit to fucking like try and like compensate for what's going on. Yeah. But I will say that if it does have the ability to be changed, I think it's just like we need to maybe focus on probably like as a nation, maybe just focus more on mental health in general. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe just more of a reinforcement. And I say that again because like I work at FYE, and it's a wonderful business. I love it. But I will say that some of the people who I've run into, like the people that I'm selling,
What does FYE stand for?
Stands for your entertainment. It's an entertainment store. So like we sell anime stuff, records, TVs, stuff like that. This dude came in and was like having, you got to shoot the shit with the customers, and he's having a genuine conversation with me about how he thinks the world is weak now because most of his coworkers, who are about my age, all have a therapist. And he's like, I don't need no fucking therapy. Like, could you imagine needing a therapist in my age? And I'm just like, yes, nigga. Like, it sounds like you're the only outlier. That doesn't sound like a lot of people at work get along with you. Right. What I'm hearing. And then he goes into the whole, is like, I don't mind the whole they, them stuff. And it's just like, well, what if your daughter wanted to be an Apache helicopter? Like, would you let her? Like, that's all I'm asking. Like, he just goes like, well, I mean, I'm just saying. Like, you said you support it, bro. And it's just like, you're contradicting yourself. And I feel like these kinds of individuals who don't take it serious are in positions right now. So maybe that's why we're not where we should be with it. You feel me? That's why I feel like if we take a little bit more of a serious look at it, and try and like get more people to, and maybe the lack of access to it is probably the biggest issue here because most of us don't have insurance or access to the tools that could lead us to, you know what I mean? But that's where friends comes in, I think. Yeah. That's where all of the individuals who actually give a shit about you, comes in. And that will reveal itself as you go through that. When you go through that thing where a new door has been opened and you're getting dragged down, the real ones will stick by you. Yeah. Because the real ones will notice, and the real ones will try and like at least.
They'll call you out on it.
And they'll notice it for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not it's going to affect your friendship or their relationships with everybody else is entirely up to how much you believe in that person, I think. Because like you said, everybody can change, and it's going to be very difficult. But it's like when you go through that, and most people don't really ever have the option to say no to those sort of things. Yeah. It's just, I feel like if we create a fostered environment to where like, people have the ability to express themselves in that way. So that way we can actually listen and see what their experiences could possibly be like, because it's not too hard to empathize sometimes. I feel like it would definitely help out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's kind of what I like to foster here at All Circles, for real. You know what I'm saying? Like if we're all going through some shit, we all figure it out. We all try and help out. You feel me?
Yeah. The neat thing about that is there actually is a very heavy cultural implication on the way we view mental health. Schizophrenia here, you have a lot of people that like, they'll see things, they get paranoid, they shut down, they have like flashbacks and shit. And that's mostly an American and certain specific cultures around the world that have that. There are certain cultures where they believe that like people like that are gifted, like they can see like beyond what most people can see about reality. And because they handle those people like they're gifted and like they have like special abilities, or like they're able to do more than a typical human, it doesn't afflict them the same way. Yeah. They can go through life like, oh, well, that's just a spirit, or like that's like an entity on a like different plane. Oh, that thing's actually how that thing looks. So they're validating to themselves that like, hey, not everything's fine, instead of feeling like they're like a problem, or they're being looked at as a piece of research for their mental health, like sort of like we do in America. And like the difference is like it's crazy, because like a lot of that, if we retooled the way we view mental health in general, especially in America, we could probably eliminate a lot of mental health problems without even like needing therapy or medication. Because that's been another thing that's on the rise. With the rise of a bunch of technology and screens everywhere, it drives a lot of people crazy. Like if you notice, the more we get technological, the more likely there are people that have ADHD or autism or some type of like,
or that lack the ability to form actual relationships.
Yeah. Or become more isolated. Oh yeah,
it's crazy when I see children who know how to work a phone better than I do. That's what's really bothering me. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like
you see like a 10-year-old with like the newest iPhone, and you're like,
right, or a fucking iWatch or some shit like that. It's like what do you need a TV on your fucking wrist for, bro? It's like.
And there's part of it where I'm like, we're going like it. I think we kind of talked about it recently, like where like. It's a catch-22. Like the world isn't gonna get less like technology heavy. It's gonna get more. How do we raise kids to like interact with that in a healthy way?
We got to do what Jared said first. We got to change the way we look at mental health and fix that first before we even tackle that problem.
Yeah, and I think I do believe like especially like with the pandemic, like it really I think exposed a lot of the cracks in like our society of like
for sure
everybody's going through some shit like
for sure. It hasn't stopped since then.
Yeah, the pandemic just put a big magnifying glass, and I think a lot of it like the awareness has been getting out there at least in like the last couple of years, because
everybody
like
woke up from the dream.
Yeah, like people are talking about it more. Like I feel like we like people are becoming more self-aware. Like, oh, like
Right.
I can't just like bury this like an Irishman.
Until you die of a stress-induced heart attack at 40.
Yeah. I didn't think we were gonna end up in like this type of place today, but I've been working on like this concept inside of my journaling, and I'm curious if you guys would be down for me to lay it out and see what you think.
Sure.
Go for it,
So I
man.
haven't shared this with anybody yet.
Oh yeah.
So it is basically I was doing some research and I was listening to some priests that are giving lectures because I'm like really trying to dive into my spiritual side right now. I'm feeling that calling for my writing because I used to just write about business and like I could never like I want to write a book.
You already know you're good at that, so you might as well just write something else.
I've tried to write like 3 different marketing books and I get like a third of the way through and I lose motivation. But I've been working on this book about like spirituality for 6 months now and haven't stopped journaling about it.
That's great.
So one of the concepts that I was working on the other day is I heard this lecture that talked about how like in the Catholic tradition you have Christ and Mary, right? And prior to that you have Adam and Eve. There's 2 covenants, right? Yeah. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. So Old Testament covenant happens with Genesis, right? Original sin happens. Eve eats the apple. They're banished from Eden. There's an angel with a flaming sword like guarding the entrance to paradise, and now they're pushed out into being human and have to struggle in the world, right?
Right.
Then, if you go biblically, 2,000 years goes by, and there's a new covenant, essentially, right? That's now Jesus represents Adam, and Mary represents Eve. And so this is like, now for us, that's 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so like 2022, Western civilization was essentially built on the back of the Abrahamic tradition.
Yep.
Right, so Islam, Judaism, Christianity.
Yep.
English common law that governs a lot of our countries was built off of those principles.
Yep.
So you can link all of that stuff back.
Yeah, like just after the papacy, basically.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you can link a lot of that back. All of the structural integrity of all of those principles is what's under attack, basically, right? Those fundamental things. And so my thought process was like, okay, if we're 2,000 years deep, let's go back into the Bible and look and see what happened 2,000 years after Genesis. Tower of Babel, swear on everything. That's where it lines up. And then you look at where we're at now, we have a bunch of layers of technology. We're so distanced from the natural world, we don't even know how to interact with it hardly anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
We made another reality.
We created another metaverse. Tower of Babel. Right? It feels like, I feel like everybody's talking past each other. There is no uniformity of value. Nope. There is no understanding of like virtual reality, physical reality. It's mixing really heavy. Yep. And all of these layers of technology that have happened over the years, I think when technology gets to a point where we believe that the technology is capable of protecting us from the outside world, we get shit like war or famine or panic or pandemics. And it's like the world's reset mechanism. It's like all of the, to get out of the whole Christian concept and get into like more meditative and more Taoism, Buddhism type stuff. A lot of my friends that are in that spiritual realm talk about a rift being formed in 2012 when social really started to take off and energy shifting ever since then. And the pandemic being a time where everybody woke up to a new level of consciousness simultaneously. Yes. And that's why everything is wonky right now, because we all became aware of a whole bunch of shit that we weren't aware of prior, and now everybody simultaneously is trying to sort it out. Where we're like, holy
it's like
shit,
the whole
technology's been running our lives since we were 16. What the fuck?
So check it out. Right?
Yeah.
So check it out. So here's the issue with that, right? There's one individual who kind of like, and I don't want to give him any attention outside of this point right here. There's one individual who kind of predicted that, and it was the fucking Unabomber, right? He literally said that this was going to happen, right? No, I'm not going to go into whatever the fuck his solution was because he's an idiot. But like, I will say that he was smart enough to predict this half of it, the Tower of Babel that we're in right now.
Right.
We're reaching a singularity to where human beings and technology are either going to become one in the same, in one entity, and that's our new concept of like God or whatever the fuck, or it becomes a resource war and we end up fighting over it, or end up fighting over control thereof of like a massive amount thereof. And then it just ends up being like Fallout, where we're just starving ourselves for resources, or trying to do another technological race to see who can make it the next best, better thing.
Right.
Which then just leads to more corruption in a business sense, and then eventually it goes the way of no more government, just business, just businesses. Because you know what I'm saying? If you can afford to make the shit that everyone wants, that's who actually has the power.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
which has happened to civilization after civilization after civilization.
It's
since
repeats. It's
the
cyclical, like you're
beginning
saying.
of man.
Like it
yeah,
just keeps
like
going.
the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, the Romans, the Greeks, the Mongols. I mean, you
Eventually,
could go
our own
on and
hubris.
on and on.
It's our own hubris eventually, dude. It undoes us every time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
you end up with a bunch of like Rome, like was fantastic, and then you end up with Caligula, Nero.
And then you know what always ends up happening? You know what else is happening? It goes the same way that every other ancient civilization goes, that we eventually end up discovering under 1,000 layers of forest.
Right.
Nature eventually takes it back over after we kill ourselves. And after we kill everything else, all the buildings that are going to be left are just going to get ran over by fucking vines. The animals will take back over. We go back to the dust that we came from, and then it all just fucking starts over again. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
the world doesn't care.
Like it doesn't give a shit about what the hell we're doing. Like, you know what I mean?
You can only really go back about what 10,000 years or so before everything is too old to even have a record.
Right.
So who's to say like we haven't been at this point before?
In unwritten history,
slightly
exactly.
different way,
Right.
and it failed.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Each time we rebuild, it's like a slight variation of that.
I can
it's
see
like
that.
the different versions of the Matrix.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Right.
But that's the thing, though. Every human being that
you
does
understand
exist,
what that guy was talking about at the end?
every human being that does exist who can conceptualize their own existence, there has now the level of self-awareness required to even conceptualize a multiverse. And if that is a fact,
Of
then
madness?
of madness, and if that is a fact, that must mean that as a concept or even a physical reality, somewhere in some way, shape, or form, it has to exist, because we can think about it, talk about it, and interact with the idea of it to such a degree that now we have the ability to explain it to people in such a way that now even a fucking kid could conceptualize it if he wanted to.
When I get into conversation, so one of my favorite things to do is like debate atheists,
Yes.
right? Like pure atheists. I mean, like
For me,
people
it's
that aren't
flat
even,
earthers. I love debating flat
for
earthers.
people that aren't even spiritual at all. I'm like, why? Why? What makes you believe that like you know everything, right? Like,
Right.
because I'm curious. Like in this,
Well, you want to know their genuine
yeah,
reason
I'm
for
like,
behind
what's your
it.
formula, dude? I've been trying to figure this out for forever,
Like,
and I've
why
never
are you so
gotten there.
nihilistic, bro?
And one of the things that they bring up is like, well, we know this about this and we know this about this when it comes to mathematical stuff, because that's most of the types that
It's
are
everything.
in
Yeah,
that
math
they're
is everything.
engineering. Yeah, like everything that we see, this is reality, right? And then you get them into like quantum mechanics and physics, and you start taking them past
Yeah, like quartz
like what we
spheres and
currently
shit like
know.
that.
Well, and even without getting like super into like the subatomic particles and all the other stuff, like a very basic idea to dismantle people on that is like, well, what about dark matter? We just figured out what that was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an anti-existence of every existence, and we can measure it. And we didn't know it was there before, but now it proves the existence of a different plane of reality. Oh shit! Wait,
Exactly.
is that a part of your equation? No. Okay, and then I just did that not too long ago with a buddy of mine, and he's been texting me. He was like, "Dude, I can't. Like, my brain is melting right now. Like, what is what is this?"
It's unreality that we discovered.
Yeah, I'm like,
then
there's
we
just
do
other dimensions.
We
And then,
do
like you
stuff
said,
like that all the time with like the CERN. The CERN, they did the Hadron Collider thing. It's like, I'm not saying we
Yeah, we're
routine-
gonna crash photons together and
Right.
just see what happens.
See,
We'll make
it's
mini
like,
black
let's
holes.
just try it out.
Exactly. It's like we routinely rip holes into other dimensions pretty frequently, I'm assuming. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
we
it's
can
like,
actually do it.
Yeah.
Like that's it's crazy to
We
me
have
that that's
machines.
possible as humans.
we have, well, that's the thing. Like, we've made machines, and let's say not even machines, just areas that are capable of holding the power of the sun on the planet Earth, which is never
Right.
a good idea.
The
which was
power of
never,
the sun
Which was never a
in the palm of my hand.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what happens in every form of media where some shit like that is like eventually.
It's like we don't learn from our own movies.
But see, that's the thing, though. So here's the thing. So here's an example. Here's my favorite example, right? I love Marvel movies, right? What they're doing with Quantum Mania is going to be fucking great, and how they conceptualize that is kind of how I like to think about how we would do it if we ever discovered another universe that was similar, if not the same as ours, right? We'd find another use stacked on top of ours. We'd communicate with it, maybe trade some resources for a while, see what's up, and then eventually one or all of us would get greedy and be like, "Hey, shit might be better over there." And our planet's dying. So what if we went over there to take what they got type shit? And then you have that shit that they were talking about in the Loki TV show where it's just like every conceptual reality fighting against each other. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, now as fun as that shit sounds,
Yeah.
I think that it's one of those situations where the fact that I can even think about that is enough for me, because that means in a reality, possibly it did exist or did happen. And I'll never know that. But the fact that I can even think about it is great. You know what I'm saying? I just have to realize that I, as a human being, can't let that be what I focus on because it's immaterial as of right now, because I'm living this version of my reality. This is what I have to focus on. And I feel like a lot of people just lose sight of that, especially around Spooktober. Whenever, you run into the chicks who are just like, I know what rocks do, and I'm a fucking Capicola, so you have to listen to what I say about spirits and shit like that. So it's like,
Are you telling me you a sub sandwich?
Exactly.
I'm a gabagool myself.
I'm telling you, my great grandma was burned in Salem, so therefore I know what rocks do. You have to listen to me. Like,
Mercury's and Gatorade.
I need to find me a girl who can tell me when Mercury's and Gatorade while listening to Fleetwood Mac. You know what I'm saying?
She made you a level 9 turtle.
Dude.
Yeah,
That stuff's wild.
We'll listen to Fleetwood Mac together and just do some painting and stuff. It'll be awesome.
It's just so complicated to me. Like, I've tried to get interested in some of that stuff, but like for me, I'm like, you're trying so hard to find something to tell you who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you're finding
instead of just like finding out who you are. Like it's like you're adding extra steps into the equation, and now you're relying on this thing, and it's all like it's demanding all of your attention.
Oh, for sure.
And
because because you want it to be part of your identity so much that you're using it as an aspect for every fucking thing, whether it's an excuse not to do something, an excuse to do something, or just an excuse to fucking judge a motherfucker. Because it's like, now here's what I know about pseudopsychology, which is fucking, most of this astrology type stuff. I don't know who writes this shit. No matter, even if it is accurate. Like, I don't know who the fuck
remember when they were
writes
like, hey, guess what, guys? There's another zodiac sign that we're going to just make up. And then everybody like lost their shit, and they were like, just kidding.
They did the same thing they did on Family Guy with Brian.
Yeah.
So I have two things. First thing, believe it or not, I think it was Ronald Reagan. He actually thought about using like an astrologer to make predictions and like how to operate the government. Like, we're gonna make this decision today. So like we were that close to having someone say, "Oh,
a literal snake oil."
This star said he had to nuke this other country. So like, let's do that today.
Have a magi hanging out with you.
That's our court wizard.
Basically.
They're like, yo, Reagan, I just turned this granite into gold. I swear to God, I figured it out, bro.
I can only do it when you're not looking, though, so don't ask me.
Exactly.
I have to put it in a bag.
Which cup is it under? Oh, it's gold.
I got a bag, and only I can look into the bag and read the secret
Isn't that how the Mormonism religion started? Like, he found those tablets that only he could read in the bag and shit like that.
Yeah.
With Smith? Yeah. Dude, Mormonism and Freemasonry are like, those are two rabbit holes if you really want to go down.
No, it's
figure
fucking
out, like,
Scientology, my dude.
Yeah.
Why there's the thing is that Scientology never really grasped a major hold. It's like one of those small sects that's
One
like
of those small
really
tax
publicized.
sects.
They're
Like small tax
Scientology.
They're like really loud, but they're not like very
Sci-
immersive. Freemasonry and Mormonism are like, I mean, there's temples that are. I mean,
That's fair.
it's like
Scientology is a
funded.
religion that had a good business plan.
Right. Yes, that is.
From the get-go, they're like, we're gonna fool the rich, the rich people that have money.
Yeah, they did, bro.
And we're gonna each level cost another like $100
$1
grand.
Right. Exactly.
And you gotta pay them every year, bro.
We only need big like some whales like John Travolta.
Yeah, so you got like a guy at the top. It's layered.
that- yeah.
You got some people that invite you in, and then you got the crowd. So it's
Yeah, it's like an MLM.
So you know a pyramid. Right?
It's an MLM. It's a
advocate of
religious
religion.
MLM. Yeah, where they make
got-
they're like go to everybody on your Facebook friend group.
Be like, hey girl,
Get them
I know it's been a
involved.
while,
Yeah.
but like,
We haven't talked since high school, but
You
you
look
want to take
great.
a free vacation?
Is there any reason that single moms fall for that more than anyone else?
Want to go on a cruise?
Right.
It's like whenever they come at you with some Ashley Madison shit, it's like, so if you just try the product, right, then that means then you get to sell it, and then I make money. And then
Yeah.
you make money.
Oh man.
I used to have people call me that were like want business consulting. And be like, yeah, I own my own business. I'm like, all right, cool.
Like,
And
what
this
kind
is
of
but when
business
I
is
started screening people, right? Because
Yeah.
they would be like, yeah, so I sell this drink called Verve, and I'm like,
You're like, so you don't own your own business.
I was like, why don't you explain to me like how everything got started? And he's like, well, my buddy emailed me, and then I went to this meeting in Cleveland where there was like a bunch of people in suits, and there was a bunch of us sitting on the other side of the room in like t-shirts, and like a bunch of people that didn't look like they needed to be there, and then they like showed us a Lamborghini. And then like everybody that was in t-shirts talked to the people in suits, and now I'm one of these guys, like team members. And I was like, so you're in a pyramid scheme.
Like, no.
I was like,
That's
no,
like when
bro,
Michael
this is
Scott
my
was
own
drawing
business,
it.
bro. And I was
He's
like,
like-
dude, you're sending me paragraph templates, man. Like,
Yeah.
you did not build this
You
shit.
did not type this up.
It's crazy because it's like there was another incident where it's like, what do you say to a friend who's drink the Kool-Aid, right? What do you say to a friend who you actually genuinely give a fuck about, who's actually caught up in the shit?
Like, they got cyanide type shit?
No,
Or
check this
like-
out. So check this out. No, not like that. They're still okay. So like, check this out. So like, my dude Joe, ex-friend of mine, when I worked at Factory of Terror, he went to a leadership training course with
That's
his
what they
wife,
always
right?
call it.
It's a leadership training course. Came back with pamphlets and a clipboard, like his life was changed. Like he was just like, yeah, man, like they gave me a lot of really good ideas and life advice on how to just like, just get my shit together, man. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, like, are you gonna keep going? He's like, well, yeah, man. And he's just like, I kind of have to. And I was like, well, why do you have to? It's like, well, if I want to keep getting the advice, I have to keep going to these meetings. You know what I'm saying? And like, and how much are they charging you for that? And he's like, well, it's not really about the money. It's more or less about me being organized. It's about me taking accountability.
Bro, they got into his
I was like,
dome, bro.
exactly.
Damn.
Like, bro, like he completely removed himself from the fucking decision he made. And he was just like,
Indoctrinated.
but then he kept asking people. He would like come. He would invite us over for like dinner and stuff under the guise of a fucking clipboard meeting type shit. He's like, hey, so now that I got all you guys here, if you like the brisket, so the next meeting that I'm gonna go to, it's like, so if you guys want
He brought out the brisket.
you know
Man.
what I'm saying?
But
So-
that's what they teach you to do, bro. Like, that's what those organizations will teach you to do. They'll
Like, you
tell
gotta
you,
rope
like,
'em,
hey,
bro.
you have to, do the same thing that was done to you, right? You have to get people into a situation where they weren't expecting a business conversation. You
Yeah.
have to like butter them up with food and conversation. You get them into a state where they're open to ideas and they feel like you've given them a bunch of things and now
Like
they owe you
social
something.
hacking.
And yeah, dude, it's all hacking social psych. Those organizations piss me
They're
what really
terrible.
makes me
off.
mad is that they get them
piss me off.
They get them to believe that they're in the right so much that they get mad when you call them out on it. It's like, bro, you're in a cult, right? Or like you're kind of fucking, you're in a pyramid scheme.
like-
It's like, no, it's not that, dude.
It's
Like, why
like,
would you even
do
assume
you guys remember that one episode of The Office when Michael Scott's trying to get them all to do this thing, and like he's like, no, it's not a pyramid scheme, and Jim's over there like, or he's like, so my dude, this guy, he said, if I get 4 of you guys, and then you guys get 4, and he Jim walks over and draws
the
a
triangle,
pyramid.
yeah.
And he's like, I gotta make a call.
It's like, oh my.
Like, no.
See, but that's the thing. When you run across people like that in life, it's just, do you not bother with it, or you just be like, hey, listen, so I'll buy 1 Ashley Madison if you leave me alone. Like, it's
Well, it's like if you, I know a lot of people that got started and that own their own businesses now. Like I sold Advocare when I was in college, so I'm shitting on it, but like, you know what I
it's
mean?
for,
Like that's
you're
what I
like-
was. It was an early idea for me of what entrepreneurship looked like.
Yeah.
You know what it got me to do? It got me really, really good at knocking on people's doors and selling
yeah.
them stuff off handle. I went down every single dorm hallway at Walsh University and sold almost $2,000 worth of product in a weekend.
Dude,
Right?
I
And I had a lot of people tell me go fuck myself.
oh yeah, you
what
gotta,
was the ratio between go
you
fuck
deal
yourself and I'll
with
buy it?
Probably like 80-20 or 75-25. 25 being positive conversions.
yeah, they always talk about the law averages. They're like,
Yeah,
look,
you just
you're
go
gonna
out there and
knock-
get punched in the face.
spend 10 hours a day. Like I'll admit it too. I was a part of the direct energy.
Hey, dude, I feel like
scam.
we're at AA now.
Oh my
We're like,
gosh, dude.
hi, my
It
name's
su-
Jan, and I sold Advocare.
And it sucked because
I sold candy bars from my high school.
so I was working.
bro.
This is what happened. I was working at Starbucks at the time, and I was like, I need a job that's not Starbucks, and so I was open for anything that was different, and so I got sucked into it. And once it was up in Akron, and at first they do a lot of team building exercises. They give you a lot of like, fun. Like some people are owls and have a lot of questions. Some people are foxes, and they, some people are bulls, and you just want to close the door and walk away from them, and like stuff like that, where you're like, they get you, and then they like give you a lot of money very early on.
Really?
And then it dries up when you're like, this is a scam.
You realize it's a scam.
You're like walking around the neighborhood being like, am I tricking people into changing their energy providers?
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm doing.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem legal.
I mean,
And
based on
very scammy.
it's based on tactics, bro. Because it's like you'll work at certain retailers where they have a quota to fill about like certain things they got to get you to buy. Like for example, they'll need you to buy fucking like a VIP pass to their fucking discount card or something.
Oh yeah.
And you got to like butter them up you can't tell them that, you know what I'm saying, it's a monthly subscription, but you got to wait until after they've bought it to say it. You know what I'm saying? You got to wait until after you've gotten their email address and all that other bullshit. They're just like, oh, by the way, just in case you forgot, so if you want to cancel it, you have to go to this website. You know what I'm saying?
You have to go to this place
and then they
Cleveland.
make the canceling thing like
almost
hard,
impossible.
Yeah,
Next
almost
to
impossible.
impossible.
Businesses like that is exactly why I got into business. If you're listening to this right now and you work for one of those businesses or you own them, I am coming for your neck.
I'm coming for all of it.
And I think
I am coming for all of it. I will expose you.
Not half.
We're gonna do it by having conversations like this on pods.
Word.
Yeah.
And
Live.
putting shit out so that people know that that's what these organizations are about because it's predatory.
And look, you are not deep because this is how I had to get myself out of that situation. Like I didn't like when I quit that job, I was like, I'm getting out of here. Like I didn't show up one day and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Morally, I can't do this shit
and
it starts to get with you.
And like in my mind, I was like, I'm like 2 months into this. Like, there's no way. What am I going to do? Just say I wasted 2 months? But the thing is, the longer you stay in that, the harder it becomes to leave because you're like, I've invested 6 months, a year.
So much time basically at this point.
Like it's what's the sunk cost average or sunk cost? What's that called?
You're talking for like growth?
No, like a sunk cost, like when you're betting, like at a casino, and like you've lost so much money, but you still hold on to hope that you're gonna get something out of it, and you're gonna win that back.
Oh yeah, I
forget what that's called.
I've
There's
never
a
really
phrase
thought of it
for
as
it.
sunk cost. I've never really been into gambling too much.
Yeah,
but I know that's exactly what gambling does, right?
Yeah,
oh yeah,
it gets
for
you to
sure.
believe that you're gonna hit the jackpot and win all your money back.
Yeah,
Plus
you're
some.
like, man, this guy's making $25,000 a month.
See, but that's the thing.
I'm gonna get to that point at some point, and you're like, no, you're not.
That's when comparing yourself in that field becomes dangerous. That's when comparing yourself to what you want to be becomes fucking dangerous. Because like you were saying on the last podcast, not fake it till you make it, embody it until you become it, right?
Yep.
Where that becomes fucking dangerous is when you start comparing yourself to motherfuckers who you put yourself around who you want to be more like and you're not there yet. So you're beating yourself up about the fact that your level of success hasn't reached theirs, whether it's time frame wise or just amount wise. That's whenever it can start fucking with you like mentally.
Yeah.
And then you'll also get haters in the process who might fuck with you while you're on your way up. Because you're doing what they're not doing type shit.
Yeah.
So
Right. So this is my antidote. Like for anybody that has a friend, you were asking about ways to get people out of the way that they drink the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So I always tell people the amount that you get in a return from life is directly proportional to the amount of effort that you give something, right?
Yeah.
And how much attention that's why we use the phrase pay attention, right?
Yeah.
You're like tithing to that thing. So what you decide to dedicate your attention to is what will manifest back to you.
Yeah.
Let's say you start with 100% attention every day, right? If you're dedicating 100% of your attention, and I'll just like use Adam as a case study, right? You're dedicating 100% of your attention to starting a video production business, right? A couple years down the line, you're making a couple $1,000s a month. You've got a bunch of equipment. You've got a network around you. You've got a group of people that are willing to like throw jobs your way. You know, you've built something, right? Because 100% of your attention and your effort that was being paid to that thing, it had maintained 100% of its value, right? In an MLM situation, would you engage with a business? Would you invest? If you were an investor, would you invest in a company where you put 100% of yourself on the line and you only have an opportunity for 20% return?
Fuck no.
Nope.
If 80% of your effort went down the drain to help the person above you in line, and you only made 20% on every 100% day that you put in, would you invest in that business? And most people's answer is fuck no.
Yeah.
But they never see it that way. They're like, I'm giving it 100%. I'm going to get there. And
It's
I'm
gonna
like,
pay
no,
off
you're giving it
eventually.
20%.
You're like, yeah. You might be giving 100%, but you're only
receiving 20% of
20,
that in
yeah.
return.
That's kind of what I'm glad you brought that up actually, because that's what's going to segue right into this point that I wanted to make also at some point during this podcast. If you are in the process of getting a business of any kind and you have a fire lit under your ass, you know, you need to get an LLC. You feel me? The power of an LLC will definitely change your mind and your fucking frame of mind about how you're going to do this business stuff. And I'm telling you, man, if you're worried about money, or again, you drank the Kool-Aid, now you're comparing yourself again, having your own LLC will help you not only during tax time, but just on the way up, because now you've got a fallback option and now you've got a way to recruit to get some of that money back that you put into the investment. So that way you don't have any of that lost cost. It's not a gamble whatsoever to have
You can
an
write
LLC.
stuff off like laptops. And
Exactly.
Like,
Dude, this fucking hoodie, these
glasses.
glasses, it all comes back to me at the end of the year if I file that under my LLC. You feel me? That's the power of having an actual business acumen if you're going to do it that way. So just a little bit of knowledge to drop out there for people who might not know.
Knowledge.
Dude, we went from Haunted, Ohio
Yeah.
to Spirits and Structure
That was pretty dope.
to Haunted.
And it all connected somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I prefer. I like this podcast. I like this shit. So thank you for joining us, Jared. That was a very riveting conversation.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope you get to come back here sometime. It's going to be great.
Tell people where they can find you.
Do that. What are your socials?
Plug Instagram or whatever.
You can just you can find me on Instagram under my name, Jared Shepard. You can do the same with Facebook. Usually I post inspirational things on my Facebook. If you want to reach out to me through Messenger for any kind of booking, if you need advice or I'm also a musician, so if you want to collaborate or anything or work on any kind of artwork projects, you can reach out to me. I also do a lot of personal projects.
You have your Twitch handle still?
Unfortunately, no. Yeah. So I dropped that on YouTube at the same time.
Oh, no.
Understandable.
Yeah, link up with me if you want to. If you they just want to just chat or have something made for you, work together. Go for it.
Oh yeah.
Sweet. Ty, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at IHateTheGram23 or my government name on Facebook or Ty_the_icon on Snapchat. And you can get at me for bookings and for hosting situations. And you can also catch me at Crackpots on Sundays at Maslin every other Sunday. Jan, where can we find you at?
And where?
Crackpots in Maslin.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a downtown. It's a comedy club for now. It was other stuff before that, but it's a comedy club right now. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never heard of that.
Yep, Crackpots. Look it up for right now.
Yeah, hell yeah. So Jan looks like Jan, Jan, Almasy on LinkedIn. That's probably where you're going to find the most engagement out of me these days.
Mm-hmm.
Also, same thing, Jan Almasy across all other platforms. IG, same thing. Facebook, same thing. Twitter, same thing.
Yep.
I just try to be consistent.
That's how you do it.
So, yeah, same brand all the way across everything. Hit me up.
Do you still have the Apex website working on? Or
Yeah, we're getting ready to launch the new Apex Communications Network website. But even then, I normally, if you're a podcast listener and stuff like that, I would encourage you, we already kind of have a personal connection. You have listened to this, so you know a little bit about me, what's going on. So shoot me a message on LinkedIn. You can go to the website, apexcommunicationsnetwork.com if you would like. But when it comes to starting a business, scaling a business, learning the ins and outs of how to navigate things, I'm always here to answer questions and help however I can. So hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll try to book some time with you.
Yeah, much appreciated.
And then Adam Robb Film, All Circles Media. Hit us up. But yeah, that's been.
Adam, on the other hand, has 15 Instagrams.
Yeah, I got 15. I
all
did,
double
I
authenticated.
did a terrible job at branding that. But thank you guys.
Please join us next time.
Peace.